Nice to meet you.
And thank you
All
for
fine.
meeting.
No, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you. Whereabouts are you based?
I'm based mainly in Copenhagen, on the countryside to Copenhagen in Denmark, but right now I'm in my flat in Spain, in
Oh,
Malaga
nice.
area,
Oh, nice.
kind of escaping the freezing cold in Denmark. Yeah, I teach other photographers, and I have like a 5-day boot camp here where photographers from Europe come in. We live in a big house, and I teach in the morning and we shoot in the afternoon. I've planned some photo shoots with models and themes and all that in the afternoon. So they really get their portfolio going and the creative juices going and just enhance their skills, really. Just
That's
having a
great.
blast. Yeah, it is. I just got back yesterday from 5 days, so I'm beat, but I'm happy.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. And how many photographers do you bring in at a time?
I keep them small now, so we only like me and 45 photographers at a time because I really like to be present. And also my experience is if the teams get too big, they don't feel comfortable if they need to ask something. So everything works out. So
There
it's
you go.
nice.
That's
Yeah.
great.
When and where did you pick up the camera for the first time and felt the rush of creativity?
The very first camera I got was a Kodak Brownie back in I guess when I was only about 14 years old. And this is a camera which takes 120 film, and
Back
it's
in the old days
all
when
back in
we
the
had
old
film.
days,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it was all plastic, the whole camera, and essentially, this is it's like a shell of a camera, but it's a classic. And you open it up, it's all plastic, and you just put the film in, and the lens is right there, and there's nothing else to it other than a wind for the shutter and something to click it, and that's pretty
Point
much
and click,
it.
really. Yeah.
Point and click.
Don't
One of
you
the
make,
very
I think they made the lenses, they kind of made a revival of the very flat brownie lens. I'm not sure, but I think I saw one, which is also just you can't do anything other than pop it on and click. That's it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that was the very first camera I got, and yeah, I think one of the very first times that as a young kid, was at school photographing people. I think that for me, I originally started photographing kids, just doing things like the school play and at school as a school photographer, as a pupil, and I remember photographing sporting events, and it was quite difficult to capture the moment. You don't know where the goal is going to
Yeah.
happen, where they're going to be on the field, and you're running around, and you're maybe on the wrong end, all the things trying to
Yeah.
capture the moment. And so I remember one time, I was probably about 16, 17. I actually decided to set the whole thing up. I said, okay, look, I'm going to be behind the goal. I want to get the best shot possible. And you're going to just kick the ball into the goal, and you're going to jump for it. The goalkeeper's going to jump for it. And I'm going to set the whole thing up. And I mean, it seems pretty obvious now, but at the time, this is probably in the mid 80s, I was doing this, and we set up all these shots. What I noticed was that when we got the pictures back, first of all, everyone looked great because it was set up. It was the
Mhm.
perfect position that everyone could be in, the best light, the best moments. And what I used to do is you'd print the picture and you'd put it up on the wall, and then people would buy the picture if they liked it. And everyone loved their pictures. And so what I really began to realize is that actually setting things up was a lot easier than
Better than just trying to catch it random.
waiting for the action. And
Yeah.
and everyone liked the picture of themselves scoring more than they did just playing.
Yeah.
So so I think it was that was a moment when I it was like a dawning on, like, oh, this is a good idea, this is something that I could do. And it
There
was like
must be
perhaps my
something to the planning. Yeah.
yeah my perhaps my first commercial adventure.
That's nice. That's a good story. I found out for me personally, it was I just liked having the control of the visual and the result. I like to find the location, book the models, do actually also my own styling. I just like to, I know my image in my head, and it's hard for me to explain to other people. So I like both scenarios very well. To both have my own shoot and my own control, but also just sometimes to leave it and say, this is my overall vision, and just leave it to other people to build from that. That is also cool. So thank you for that share. You find your genre niche fairly quick, or did you serve for a while? Like, did you know you wanted fashion, beauty, or whatever, or did you like try everything out first?
Oh no, I was a model myself in the late 80s, early 90s, and I really never thought of becoming a photographer. I was destined to go to medical school, and the modeling was just a bit of fun, on the side to make some money and travel and see the world. And I think what happened is that I really enjoyed the industry. I liked the watching what was happening in the business. It was very exciting times in the late 80s, early 90s, sort of end of the supermodel era, and diving into sort of the time when Kate Moss and was a rising star, and designers like Anna Sui and Marc Jacobs were on the rise, and Calvin
Mm,
Klein and what have you. So it was an interesting time in the fashion business as well, and it was a sort of changing of the guard from a very voluptuous, sort of curvaceous, sexy 80s supermodel to a sort of heroin chic, androgynous look, which was radically different. And the fashion industry is famous for doing that kind of knee-jerk
mm,
reactions. And I was right there at the crux of it happening. And I found it fascinating. And having never experienced anything like that before, having been in an English boarding school in the middle of the countryside, it was quite parochial, and I had very
mm,
little experience of life. So for me, I think it was eye-opening to see this and to see the kinds of people that worked in fashion. Many of them were the sort of people who at school, at high school, would have been the odd ones out. But in this industry, they were the stars. For me, that was really exciting and different. And I'd never seen such a mixed group of people together collaborating. So I was fascinated, and I wanted to stay in fashion. So, and I also noticed that clearly, as a photographer in fashion, you could work at any age. And the older you
mm,
got, it didn't seem to be detrimental to your
mm.
skill set or anything you were in. So it was one of the few jobs in fashion outside of perhaps being the
Yeah,
designer there where you could have a career. And so I knew that, and I'd had this interest in photography since I was a kid. So, I was a school photographer. I learned to print when I was at high
you
school, but
started early, you can
I
say,
started, yeah, so
officially.
I had I say it started early. I didn't know that was just for fun at school. I was just being creative.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I never ever thought of it as a job, but I very quickly realized as a when I was modeling, this is something I could actually do, and then I could stay in this crazy business that I kind of like and make
yeah.
a career out of it. So, I kind of started taking pictures in 1994, is when I really seriously bought myself my first proper camera. That was an investment, and I started to take pictures.
And you never looked back since.
I've never looked back. I've never also pigeonholed myself into just being a photographer
No,
either. I
yeah,
think that for me, the essence of what I enjoy is creativity. And as long as I'm being creative, I'm happy. So if
yeah,
I'm writing, or if I'm making or designing, or, anything in the creative field, I find that, that kind of fulfills me. So,
yeah.
I've been lucky enough to be able to do a lot of different things in the creative world.
You, as a photographer and a person, really, I think those kind of go hand in hand. Are you a techie, a people person, or both? And what has been the, for whatever genre you define yourself, what will be the benefits and the challenges to be so?
I'm definitely not a techie. Um, I'm 100% a people person. And as a portrait photographer, for me, the essence of capturing a great picture has very little to do with the technical side of it. And it has much more to do with how comfortable your subject is in front of you, and whether they have the ability to let down their guard. And
Mm-hmm.
so there is a lot of phototherapy, so to
Yeah,
speak, where you are able to talk to someone, give them confidence, or not actually, or scare them, or whatever it might be. I mean, I think that there is, the essence of a great image isn't always beauty in the classic sense. It is something that's striking, something that's real, something that is honest, something that is, authentic. And those things, as cliche as they sound, are actually a lot harder to achieve, because as soon as you bring up a camera to someone's face, they tend to
Yeah.
perform or act or
Yeah.
hold
Or
back,
freeze.
And so, the job is to make them at ease. And so that's something that I've always concentrated on. I mean, I have plenty of assistants and people who work with me who are very technically capable. And I'm not classically trained. I have never worked for another photographer in my life. I've never assisted. I never went to college. I just picked up a camera and started shooting.
Yeah.
Outside of having a high school teacher show me how to print, that was it. I think some of that is very much just the nature of my eye and what I like to see, and as a creative person. But most of everyone who works for me now has a master's degree in photography and are brilliant technical guys, and they love their gear, and they're always buying gear, and they're always showing me the latest piece of equipment and the biggest camera, and and all the things, and I love it for them, and
Yeah.
I often rent the camera from them for the day. And
Yeah.
I have also photographed with some of the most extraordinary equipment in the world. So I've been blessed to have been, working with both Canon, Sony, Profoto, Harlow, Leica, over the years in a big capacity, where I've had the luck and the ability to have access to some of their top lenses, top cameras, toys that you don't really always get to play with. But again and
Mm.
again, I always say none of that makes a good photographer.
What's the best decision you ever made in your career, other than being a photographer?
That's a big question. What is the number? I don't know that there's the best decision I've made in my career. I can tell you a couple of decisions I've made that have been good ones, though. I mean, I think first of all, I've been very lucky. Early on, one of the reasons why I actually picked up a camera in the first place is because I met my wife. So I met my wife and her twin sister, and they were and are and have always been my muses
Mm.
in photography. And anyone who follows my work has seen that I've photographed these two women for now 34 years. It's
Mm.
highly unusual for a photographer to be able to have the same subject for 30 plus years and to watch them grow. It's one thing for them to be your child. It's another thing for them to be an adult woman
Yeah.
who then grows. And they were professional models. So that was a very unique lucky thing that I had that also inspired my entire career. So that was I say a decision, but it was certainly something that was very opportunistic and lucky that happened to me. I think one of the decisions I made clearly that was a game changer was deciding to go on America's Next Top Model.
Mm.
It may seem obvious, well, why wouldn't you? But actually, at the time, deciding to be on a commercial TV show when my career as a photographer was actually doing quite well, and I had just done a bunch of really good jobs, big editorials in New York City. I was working for big magazines, and was getting the ear of some of the biggest designers on the planet calling me and asking me to do jobs. That was all happening, and then the Top Model happened, and I had to make a decision to jump on a TV show that would be on prime time, which I did. I rolled that dice,
Mm.
and it clearly panned out. It became one of the biggest shows in the world, and I went on to do it for over a decade and 17 seasons, and it became an epic TV show. But it wasn't. It could also have damaged my career because of the fashion industry was quite skeptical about being on, say, a commercial television
Mm.
show. They don't take it seriously. It's like you're not a real photographer then. You've sold out. So
Yeah.
you always play against that side of it. But at the end of the day, Top Model won out, and American Vogue and Italian Vogue became our magazine sponsors on the show. And we were more in vogue than Vogue was.
Yeah. I actually saw the show. I didn't see it live. I saw it the photo shoots, and I skipped to the final shots. I didn't see all the in between because I really just wanted to see the photographs and the ideas and the creativity. That was so cool and well done, hanging on for so many years. It takes a good show to be going for so long.
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
With today's possibility and evolving with AI, and you need to do video, and we have the phones that are getting better and better. How do you see a photographer, let's say in 10 years' time? What will the day-to-day be?
I mean, it's very hard to predict what it will be like in a decade from now because technology is advancing at such a rapid speed. But I remember when we first started shooting digitally back in 2003, and on America's Next Top Model, on my very first episode, we shot with Mamiya digital cameras, which were the first time they were ever being used in the United States. The guys from Mamiya flew over from Germany with 5 camera bodies. They were the first 5 Mamiya digital cameras in the US. And we shot with them, and they all broke one after the
Oh,
other. And
okay.
finally, the last one worked the whole way through the shoot. I mean, we managed to do the whole shoot, but it was a beginning time of using this technology. And
Yeah.
when I say broke, they just jammed, things didn't work, technology was glitchy, but they worked in the end. And we ended up using them for the entire season, everything. But this was, remember, these were one of the very first time that
Yeah.
you could shoot a photograph on television and it would pop up on a screen and people could film it. And we wanted to be able to do all of that. And that had never happened before. No one had ever seen that. And there was nobody to even help me as a photo assistant. We found one young guy called Marcus Brooks in New York City who had a technical background from Austin University, and he'd been into it early. And he ended up being my first assistant for over a decade after that one job. But it was a pioneering time. So you take that and you think, okay, what's happening now?
Yeah, with
And
everything so moving so fast.
absolutely, it's moving very fast, and
Yeah.
AI, is clearly can do a lot of things that photography can do, but what it can't do is capture the heart and the soul
Mm.
and the personality,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have the storytelling ability, right? So there's something very boring about perfection, and one of the things that I always strive for is that honesty, and there's a lot of beauty in the imperfection. There's all we're the sum of our imperfections. We're not the
Yeah.
sum of our perfections. And so just like oftentimes when someone, say, has plastic surgery to make themselves look great or better or perfect, they often don't, and
Mm.
you wonder why. Like, why is it that when they have all the things in the sort of quote unquote perfectly fixed, that
Mhm.
they then look wrong? And
Yeah.
sometimes that, it's not always, but sometimes I believe it's because when things are perfect, we, as the way we process it in our minds, it means it's not right. We don't
Yeah.
read it as the way it should be. And actually, if you look at sort of some of the greatest supermodels ever, like Christy Turlington, for example, and you look at her face closely, it's far from even. One eye is bigger than the other, one eye is slightly higher than the other. There are all sort of little things that are
Mm.
off. But actually, when you read it, it looks perfect. It's the most
Yeah.
beautiful face you've ever seen. And yet if you break it down, it doesn't mirror one itself.
Mm.
It's off. So there are a lot of things like that AI has real problems with and doesn't
Yeah.
understand the nuances. I doubt that it will ever learn it because it's that human error
Yeah.
that it would have to
That makes the
understand.
perfect. It's the
That's
imperfection.
that would
Imperfection
actually
that makes.
makes, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that there will always be room actually for a photographer,
Yeah.
because there's something about what we do storytelling wise that a computer has yet to even show a glimmer of.
Yeah.